Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here, and I'm finally here with my birthday question and answer video. I had an amazing 24th birthday. I just spent time with people in my family that I really care about, and I saw my best friend who's now back from France, and I saw Dan, and he actually got me the most amazing thing. He went to a signing recently at, I think it's at Forbidden Planet. And Russell T Davies was there signing his new Doctor Who book, and I didn't know that Dan had actually got me a birthday card signed from Russell T Davies. So yeah, basically it says happy birthday from Russell T Davies, and it's got a little illustration of a Dalek inside, and that was just amazing to me because Russell T Davies is, as you know, one of my favourite writers and such a big inspiration to me because I want to get into writing, script writing and creative writing. So yeah, that was really momentous to me, so that was amazing. But this is not what I got for my 24th birthday video, this is a question and answer video. So I'm going to try and go through as many questions as I possibly can. I'm probably not going to pick any really heavy ones because my mental health has been kind of up and down and I don't really want to be doing the dark questions, but I will do a video for dark questions at some point. Maybe one dedicated to mental health stuff when I'm in the right frame of mind, and then it will all be in one place so you can kind of go to it if you need it. Okay, so here we go. Shooting Star ASMR asked, what are your favourite TV shows and do you want to get any tattoos in the future? My favourite TV shows are Doctor Who, BBC Merlin, which finished ages ago but it'll always have a big place in my heart. I love Emmerdale, and I kind of have to say I'm going to have to include Coronation Street and EastEnders as well because I just love the soaps. Soap as a genre, I want to write for soaps, so soaps. I really enjoy Game of Thrones. I've just finished watching The Crown on Netflix, which was really enjoyable. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it because after I finish watching a TV show, I have an instinctive feeling, and sometimes it takes me a little while to realise if it's something that I really loved or if it was just something I liked at the time, because I get super obsessive about stuff. Do I want to get any tattoos in the future? I'm not sure. I've had ideas for tattoos before, but I feel you have to be really certain, and because I have BPD and I'm quite impulsive, I'm very aware that something I might want in the moment or for that particular period of time, I might completely not want anymore a year down the line, so I have to be really careful with that kind of impulsive stuff. Something I've learned on my mental health journey is that I need to give myself some time sometimes to choose things and make decisions. So I don't have any immediate plans for tattoos, but I have in the past. I've wanted maybe book quotes and things like that mean something to me. So I don't know, we'll have to see. If I was going to get a tattoo, I'd get it along my arm. I think I'd probably get it along my left arm. I'd like to do it on the inside of my left arm because I've got lots of self-harm scars there, and I'm not ashamed of them or anything, but I also feel it might be good for me to have something there that's really inspiring. So if I ever feel drawn back to that behaviour, then I can see an inspiring quote or something. That might be really helpful, I don't know. Lauren Targaryen asked, how are you doing at the Open University and are you on any dating apps or dating anyone? So with the Open University, I'm on holiday at the moment. I've just finished my second year. I've contacted them, and because I've got good grades so far, they're letting me do 2 parts of the course at the same time again this year coming up. So that's really good. I'm due to do an examination. I've had a problem with this actually. I'm due to do an examination in September. I had to defer it because I tried to get the adequate disability support because I can't do crowded rooms for exams. When I did my GCSEs and my A-levels, I did all of those in a side room because I would just get panic attacks in the crowded room, and that was no good. So I got in contact with them the first time round to see if they could give me a home tutor or a side room or something, which they're supposed to do according to their website. And they said, oh, you haven't given us enough time. So I said, okay, well I can't complete the exam under those conditions, so I'm gonna try and defer for September because that was what I was advised by my tutor and things. So they said, oh yeah, sure, there's plenty of time for that. But I've said to them again, that I am gonna need a home examiner or something, or some sort of they need to make some sort of concession for me because of my disability, and I just haven't heard back from them even though they've had ages and ages, so I'll update you on that front. But yeah, I'm due to have my exam in September, so I'm revising at the moment. We shall see. Am I on any dating apps or dating anyone? I am actually on Tinder and Bumble, but I'm really bad because I go on a dating app and I chat to people and then I forget about it, but it's weird because you might get this if you have mental illness as well, but I feel time passes differently to me than it might do to other people who are more normal because yeah, it's just I feel sometimes when I'm feeling really good, I can get so much done in a day, and when I'm feeling really bad, like, I just don't have the energy to even, it sounds so silly, but to even like open an app and like talk to someone. I don't even have the energy, and so that's really hard. Like, I can't kind of get into like a regular chatty thing with anyone on the apps. And also I'm always worried because you hear lots of like bad stories about people on Tinder, about how like guys are sort of only after like hookups and things, and my profile says that's not what I'm looking for, but you do occasionally get talking to a guy and then it will become apparent that they're only after that one thing, which is fair enough if they're looking for a girl who's also after that thing, but my profile says I'm not, so that's kind of like, oh, like, you've wasted my time, thanks. I am trying Bumble as well at the moment. I haven't been on that one very long, so I'll update you on my progress, but I'm not dating anyone. I would like to be. It's just hard to get out there and meet people. It's a struggle, like, because I don't really go out or anything, so where am I going to meet people? I don't even know. Eureka Lily asked, I do have a question. Where do you buy your clothes? You always look lovely, and I'm moving to the UK soon, so I really love to know. Thank you so much, Lily. That's really nice. I don't know where these shops stand in terms of like ethics. We don't have much money in our family. I'm from a single parent family. So basically I do my shopping at Primark, H&M and New Look, which are all within my price range, because I can't really afford like lots of, you know, expensive clothes because I'm not working. Also, I really love charity shops. There's like 4 around here that I go to all the time, and so many of my clothes that people say nice things about are actually charity shop clothes. I just love charity shops, and I don't understand people who kind of turn their noses up at them. You know, the sort of people who are like, oh, I only buy like from like the posh expensive shops. Like, if it's a nice piece of clothing, like, what does it matter? And it's kind of nicer to come from a charity shop as long as it's in good condition, because you're kind of, you know, the money's going to a good cause, and you can take your old clothes there as well, and it's good, isn't it? Ren says, can I ask, what is your favourite memory? I have a couple of really good memories. I remember being I must have been about 3, because it's before Dad left and Dan wasn't born yet. And I remember going to Longleat on some sort of holiday, and there was like a hot air balloon show, and I remember being so small and looking up at all these hot air balloons being lit up into the sky, and it was a lovely day. My great grandma was there with me, and she's passed away now, but I remember her being there, and my mum being there, and my dad being there, and it's just a really good memory. And I wrote about that for my GCSE, I think. I think our GCSE question was actually to write about a childhood memory, and I think I wrote about it there, and I got a good grade, so that memory has served me well. And I have another great memory, which is with my grandma, my granddad, and my brother and my mum. We went to Lulworth Castle, and there was jousting, and it was just the most lovely day, and we got to watch like a fake jousting thing going on, and they were playing music from BBC Robin Hood, and I just loved that so, so much. It was just such a good day, and I especially remember spending time with my granddad on that day, and I loved it. Lena Hoffman asks, how would you describe the way you dress / your fashion style? I really don't know. How would you describe it? I don't know, how would you guys describe it? It's hard to know because, again, because of the BPD and like the identity changes, I go through different stages with fashion, which I think all people do anyway, but I think with BPD, like, you tie a lot of your identity to your fashion, so I go through stages where I dress in a certain way and I feel like it projects an identity, and then I go somewhere else, and I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't know, how do you think? How would you describe my dress sense? I've got no idea. I try to just dress in what I like, and I'm really working on developing my own style, because I feel like, because of the BPD, often I see things in the shops and I think, oh, my favourite character or a character I like would wear that, so I'll buy it. But it's not really, I don't know, like, my sense of self is so weird that it's quite hard to pick out things that I like and that are me. So I'm trying to do that. I'm trying really hard to do that, but that's really hard. L013 asks, who is your favourite hero, your favourite villain, and why? My favourite hero is, okay, so I'm gonna say the Doctor is probably my favourite hero, because I love that the Doctor, first of all, I love the fact that the Doctor changes so much, and because the Doctor is a character that can change with the times, it kind of saves the character from being stuck in the past and maybe from having old-fashioned attitudes, because as we move forward, the Doctor is unique as a character because he or she or they can move forward as well. I like the fact that the Doctor is kind and wise. I love that the Doctor values humanity, and I find the Doctor very inspiring as a human. Such a weird thing to say. But yeah, it kind of, I feel like the Doctor makes me want to be a better person, but then again so do his companions and her companions going forward, hopefully. I like the fact that the Doctor is mostly pacifist. Like, I feel like there are instances where the Doctor's kind of gone against that, obviously, but on the whole the Doctor tries to find a non-violent solution, and I just think that's brilliant. I really admire and love that. So the Doctor is my favourite hero. My favourite villain, I love a lot of villains. My ultimate favourite villain is Iago from Othello, because I feel like I just marvel at Shakespeare. I remember when I'd finished my A-levels and I was getting ready to go to universities, and it was a complete farce because I knew I wasn't well enough to go to university, like away from home, but I tried anyway to go to some like interviews for them, and yeah, it was bad. I went to Queen Mary's for a sort of interview there, and I cried on the tube, and it was just a really stressful, horrible day, and I should have known already that I wasn't made for that sort of university setting, and that was fine. I shouldn't have pushed myself into it. I should have just understood that my needs were slightly different, and that was fine. But anyway, so I went along and I had my sort of chat with this guy, this nice Irish guy, and he was saying to me, asking me all sorts of questions like, what's your favourite play, and who's your favourite writer, and what's your favourite style, and all that kind of thing. And it went really well. The feedback I got was brilliant, and I did get offered a place from it. But I remember he asked me, and he said, who is your favourite playwright? And then he said to me, you're not allowed to say Shakespeare. And I actually argued with him in the interview, like not like an argument, like an angry argument, but like debated him. And I said, well, I mean, Shakespeare is my favourite playwright, because I feel like Shakespeare was using all those narrative devices and those sort of tropes that we still use today, like back in the Elizabethan times. And I feel like so many of the villains today, for example, they come from Shakespeare. They are those Shakespeare archetypes. Like the idea of Iago, a villain who talks to the audience, who breaks the fourth wall. And there's kind of a joy in Iago because he's evil, but you also connect with him because he's talking to the audience. There's something appealing about that, and you see that in so many villains and things. Like, you can see that in the Master in Doctor Who, the Joker in Batman, you can see it in Moriarty in Sherlock. That's the mystery of Iago, and what I think is so brilliant about him is that he's a really odious human being, but at the same time you want to watch him. You want to know what he's saying. You want to understand him. It's like he draws you in, but you're never going to get your answers. And I think that's such a blueprint for other villains I like. So yeah, Iago from Othello. I took ages describing that, but definitely Iago. April asked, just a silly question because I'm a bit too into astrology, do you believe in star signs at all? Asking as a fellow Taurus, because I definitely identify with the traits a lot, and I think you seem like a very strong Taurus as well. And then I love you and your videos so much, have an incredible birthday. Thank you so much, April, and I did have a wonderful birthday. I mean, I don't necessarily I don't believe in them like properly believe in them. Like, I don't think that it can be really possible to categorise like personalities into those groups. I just don't think that can work. But that being said, I do have a lot of strong Taurus traits. So I don't know if it's one of those things where everyone has different aspects of like their personalities and we want to belong to a group, so we pick the parts that apply to us and we ignore the stuff that doesn't. But I will say that yeah, I am quite a strong Taurian, which is quite weird. I feel like if I was looking at the zodiac, that Taurus would be one of the ones that stood out to me. I like aesthetics and stuff that's visually pleasing. One of my defining traits, I think, is probably that I'm quite stubborn and opinionated. I like to think that I change my mind if I get better information, but I am quite a stubborn, resilient person actually, which is at odds with the rest of my personality because I'm quite an anxious person, so that really sticks out. So I don't know, maybe I am, I've got no idea. Does anyone else who knows about astrology think that I fit the Taurian brief from what you know of me in the videos? I don't know, what do you think? Toby Harris asks, what are your predictions for the final season of Game of Thrones? Well, to be honest, I feel like they're a bit stuck with Game of Thrones. I feel like they're not going to be able to please everybody with what they're doing, because the very nature of what they're doing, turning this book series into a TV show, is not going to work. The formats aren't going to mesh. Because up until now, yeah, it's been pretty exciting to watch, but there's so much nuance in the books and in the early series of the TV show because it came from George R.R. Martin's books and from a novel, and I feel like this last series we've had, which hasn't come from a novel, it's just come from, you know, some plot points from George R.R. Martin, who hasn't written that far yet, it's losing a lot of its complexity and what drew me in the first place. Because what I enjoy about Game of Thrones, and it has its flaws, but I love that it's not good versus evil in Game of Thrones. I mean, in the last series, that's what kind of turns me off it a little bit, because it kind of did turn into the good guys are on one side and the bad guys are on another. And sort of you knew that your good guys were safe in the last series. Like, Jaime charges towards a dragon and he gets saved. And he walks away from Cersei and you think she's going to kill him, and she doesn't, and he's saved. And Jon Snow keeps coming back from the dead. And it kind of feels like it's getting more samey, like the good guys are safe. And something I loved about Game of Thrones is that nobody was safe. Like, you did not expect Ned Stark to go. People went all the time, and it felt so mortal and sort of real in a way. It felt dangerous. And I kind of feel like it's losing that slightly. But it's not their fault, because in the format they're doing, they can't keep writing these complicated stories that branch out and branch out and branch out, because it wouldn't work for the TV format. So I feel like what we are going to get is a battle, but, you know, good versus evil. I think probably the good guys will defeat the White Walkers, but the ending will be left a little bit suspicious, so they leave it open for themselves to do something in the future, like, oh, they're dead, and then you see like the hand of like an ice zombie like moving or something. I don't know. I think Dany's probably gonna become queen. Jon's probably gonna become Warden of the North. I think Jaime's probably gonna kill Cersei. So he becomes the Kingslayer again, well, the Queenslayer this time, and that's a plot point that I'll be very interested in, because I'm fascinated by the Jaime and Cersei relationship, and it's one of the only relationships in the show which seems to have retained that sort of nuance. Like, Jaime seems to be the only character left in the show who has that sort of good guy, bad guy contradiction, which is so fascinating to me, because is he bad, is he good? You don't know. He's got so many different feelings and people pulling him in different directions. His loyalty to Tyrion, his loyalty to Cersei, his reputation he wants to uphold. He's also got Brienne now to hold him to account. Like, he's a fascinating character. But yeah, my predictions are going to be that people are going to be disappointed, and I kind of feel bad for the show, because I feel like they can't possibly satisfy what everyone wants simply because of the format. So I'm really looking forward to it, but I'm also kind of dreading it, because I feel like people are going to be underwhelmed and it's not going to go down well. Sunflower Anna asks, do you remember your high school days much, and how was your experience at school in general / exams? Well, I enjoyed infant school and junior school immensely. Started to show signs of anxiety and mental illness when I was in junior school, where I used to start crying on the way to school, and I spent a lot of time in reception, where you'd go if you felt ill, and I'd cry and want my mum. I couldn't handle when we were watching films. Like, we'd have the 3 classes from our year group would all get together for a film, and it was supposed to be this treat for us all, and I used to dread it. And then I also remember before assemblies, like, asking to go to the toilet and just like locking myself in the toilet and feeling ill and having to psych myself into it. So that's very young if you think about it. So unfortunately, a lot of my school memories from then onwards, pretty much my whole secondary school experience, I kind of feel like it's been blighted by my mental illness problems, and it didn't need to be. I feel like if the support was there and we lived in a kinder society and it was understood, and we just knew that some people had different needs and we sort of catered to that, I feel like I could have enjoyed my school. But looking back, it's sad for me, because I feel like I didn't have proper teenage years, I didn't have proper school. A lot of it's a blur because it was so unpleasant. A lot of it is very, it sounds silly to say traumatic, but it was. I was under so much stress. I was, you know, getting panic attacks every day, several times a day. I was dreading it. I used to wake up and just, oh, it was awful. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. And I'm surprised I managed to keep it up for so long before I had a breakdown, actually. You know, that's quite weird. But I don't remember much of it at all. I remember, the good times I do remember are like at lunch times, like lying on the field with my friends, just lying on our blazers and looking up at the clouds, which sounds cliche because I'm sure everyone does that, but that was very relaxing and calming. But in general, oh, and art lessons as well. I had the most amazing art teacher who I'm still friends with now, and I talk to her on Facebook sometimes, and she's basically like, you know when you see someone and you think, that's what I want to be like at your age? Because she's always doing like arts and crafts, and she's really smart, and she's really into Oscar Wilde, and she has all these like interests, and I think, oh my god, like that's the life I want to live. So I've always kind of looked up to her, and her lessons were like a real lifeline for me. I always enjoyed her art lessons throughout my time at school whenever I was with her for art. So that's like that was like my silver lining at school. I used to completely relax there. And I think it's because she was a good teacher, because she was like strict, so there wouldn't be like, you wouldn't get bullying and stuff going on in her class. There was respect going on. She knew what she could stop if there was unpleasantness going on, because I remember at school, it's horrible if you're getting bullied and you've got a teacher who can't control that, because you shouldn't have to feel that in school. But she was always on that, and she was just kind, and her environment in that art class just felt respectful and nice, and different groups of people kind of got on and chatted who wouldn't usually, you know, have that relationship. And it sounds weird, but going forward, that's kind of how my YouTube stuff, how I've planned my YouTube things, really. A space where it feels like there's a line and there's respect, but different people can kind of come together. So that was a good experience. And I remember performing in a lot of shows at school, because I liked singing and dancing, and yeah, I did that quite a lot, and that was fun. And I played Nancy and Oliver at one point, which was great. I was deep in mental health troubles then, but that kind of pulled me through for a bit. So yeah, that was dark, but I do have some good memories of school. Exams, in terms of exams, I used to do mine in a side room. Great stress, because the school still wasn't great at organising that kind of thing. So I'd go in the morning thinking, are they going to even let me sit in the side room, because I can't do it in the big hall. I think back in those days, people thought that if you had different needs in terms of mental health, they thought you were just making it up. Like, I couldn't go into assemblies, and I was told, okay, I could go and sit in the library instead. But every time I would, I'd feel like I'd done something wrong. Like, teacher would approach me and say, oh, are you not going to assembly today then? But in like a really nasty way, even though they knew why, as if they thought I was just trying to get out of an assembly, which is so silly, and it made me feel like I was doing something wrong, and that just made me upset every morning. That was bad. But yeah, my experience at school was meh, but there were good parts. And it formed me as a person, so I'm glad it all happened, because it made me who I am today. A Night Owl asks, are you doing a review of Infinity War? You know we need more Dan. I'm doing a video with Dan tomorrow, but it's actually about the Time Team, but I'm sure he would be very interested in doing an Infinity War review. Dan is now back from university for the summer, which is brilliant, because I get to see him loads. Yeah, basically, I don't know if you know about this, but we're actually on the Time Team, the official Doctor Who magazine, BBC Time Team, which is a feature in the Doctor Who magazine, which might not be of interest to some of you, but for those of you who follow us for fandom stuff and Doctor Who, it's pretty exciting, and it's just amazing, really, and the people we've met through it has been wonderful, and the experience is great. Basically, we watch episodes of Doctor Who, and we talk about them, and then it goes in the magazine, so we have opinions on stuff in the magazine, which is a great honour for me, because I've always read the magazine. I've got loads and loads of issues of it upstairs, like I've got it for years, and I used to enjoy the old Time Team stuff, but also as like a woman in fandom, and a woman of colour in fandom, and a bisexual in fandom, sometimes when you put an opinion out there, and maybe you might call something out, you might say, look, that bit is sexist to me, I find that very sexist. You know, you're often shouted down by, it's a very male-dominated fandom, really, and, you know, that doesn't really get listened to, so the fact that the Time Team is giving a platform to people who are, like, more diverse is brilliant for me, because it feels like the fandom is equaling out a bit. I'm surprised they even asked me on, because of how vocal I've been about how sexist I found some of the writing towards the end, and especially Moffat's stuff. He does some good stuff with Doctor Who, but I've been very vocal about his sexism in the show, because I just don't think it's acceptable, and I don't think it's good. But yeah, they asked me, that's great, Dan's on it too, so we'll be talking about that. I'm sorry, your question. In summary, you will see more Dan this summer, because he's down for the summer, and it makes me happy to have him around. Melody Luna Magic says, oh, some really nice compliments. You look beautiful, I love the dress, thank you. There's some other stuff as well, but I won't read it on here. My question is, what would your dream job be? Would you like to be a pop star? Would you rather be a writer? Is there something else you'd like to be doing? My dream job would be to write for television. So I'd like to write for soap, or I'd like to write for something like Doctor Who. Basically, I feel very passionately about social justice issues, but I also love fiction, and character-driven fiction is my sort of thing, you know. Different writers have different styles, like they can be into plot, but for me it's all about character. That's why I'm drawn to soap, because although they have like outlandish plots, you follow it because you love the characters, you grow with the characters, and if you watch soap for a long time, you can see a character grow up in front of you. And I really love that kind of thing. I'd like to use that platform of writing to kind of spread a message, because I feel like television has a bit of a responsibility, actually. I feel like if you have that privilege and that honour of being able to write for such a wide audience, I feel like you need to try and move things forward slightly, even if it's just in terms of putting perspectives out there that wouldn't usually be heard because perhaps that group is a minority. It's small things, like you can really change the world through television. I really believe that because my world has been changed through television. And that's also why I feel so passionately about calling out things on TV if it is sexist or racist or homophobic and it has that bad message, because I feel like you have the honour to write for such a huge audience and you can do great things with it, and to actually to let alone not putting the new stuff in, you know, to actually bring things backwards and to make sexist jokes and that sort of thing on shows in 2018 which are for wide audiences. You have power, and I think some people underestimate that power. Maybe I'm just power hungry. I'm a creative writer. Maybe as a writer you are power hungry, because it's kind of like being God, isn't it? It's like you create the characters, you decide what happens to them. I say that, but when I write characters, like I'm writing a big Emmerdale fanfiction at the moment, and the characters have their own thing. Like sometimes I want them to do something for the plot, and they just won't do it. They won't do it because I'm a character-driven writer. I like character-driven stuff. If the character doesn't feel like it's going to do it, I can't do it for the sake of the plot. I have to find a way around it, because the most important thing for me is staying true to character. That wasn't your question, but what I'd like to do is write for television. That's the dream. Tetsubo57 asked, if you could add one book to the school curriculum of every student on the planet, what would it be? I don't know what exact book I'd choose, but something which I do think is important is that in infant school there are more books about LGBT people. So I'm not talking about, when I say that, a lot of people say, oh, well, kids don't need to know about sex. I'm not saying about anything like that, obviously, because they're kids. I just mean, if you've got kids reading books like Cinderella, like, oh, the prince and the princess lived happily ever after, and it's very basic, and it's romantic, and it's a bit silly, but it's what, you know, it's what the kids read. I think it would be nice to just normalise things by having, you know, a prince and a prince got together, a princess and a princess found each other and they fought the dragon and they lived happily ever after. Something very normalising at a young age, which would let the generation coming forward, they wouldn't feel shame if they were LGBT, and if they're straight then they'd support their LGBT friends because they'd just see it as normal. I think that's what I'd love. I'd love for every school to get a book like that. Something really, really simple. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of questions about what I look like. Very complimentary ones, actually. And Emily Millwood asked me here, do you think your taste in clothes and makeup has changed in the last year? And how do you like to present yourself now versus this time last year? Okay, so I'm not just this question, but the other ones I've had. So I think my look has changed, and I think it's because I have become more confident. I feel like I'm growing into myself. I feel like I'm at that point in my life where I am starting to be me and not copy other things or be what I think I should be. In general, I feel like my makeup's become better because as I've got older, I've just got more used to finding what suits my face. Like, I don't understand those makeup tutorials and things where they're like, this is the makeup to do, and I think it depends on your face and what you like. And is there a correct way to do your makeup? Not really. But I think I found something that really suits my face and that I like wearing, so in terms of makeup, I feel like maybe I'm doing a bit better now. I don't know. I mean, in some of my old videos I used to get really horrible comments about my makeup, which is really out of line, because even if perhaps the makeup wasn't that great, why would you comment about what someone puts on their face anyway? Like, it doesn't matter if someone wears makeup or they don't wear makeup, like, it doesn't matter. Especially when I was doing videos talking about like politics and feminism and stuff. It just felt so demeaning that people would like say nasty things about that. I don't know, there's a lot of pressure. But I feel like just as I'm getting older, I'm getting more comfortable with my look and what I want to look like, and what suits me, I suppose. I will say, in terms of presenting myself, there's no way anymore that I would wear anything uncomfortable. In the past, my mum is quite sort of glamorous and very looks oriented. You know, she always looks brilliant. She won't go out if she hasn't got her makeup on, that kind of thing, and I kind of grew up around that. And there's nothing wrong with the way my mum presents herself. She looks wonderful, everyone says so, you know, she really does look great. But I kind of emulated her, as you do as a kid, like, you know, as her daughter, I kind of emulated her, so I used to try and wear heels and wear all that very feminine stuff, and as I got older I sort of I used to think sort of like she thought, oh, it's worth the pain for fashion, like it's worth it to look good, and so I used to kind of do that, and now I just think it's not worth it for that. If I can't move reasonably well in my clothes, I'm not going to wear it. This is why I hardly ever wear like bodycon unless it's got like a kind of slit in it or something, because if I can't run, that's how I decide. If I can't run in an outfit, if I can't move quickly in it, if it's restricting my breathing, I don't wear it, and I won't wear it. In terms of heels, I very rarely wear them, only if they're really comfortable, and mostly only for like special occasions. Most of the time it's just flats, because again, I don't want to be wearing anything that kind of restricts my movement. It makes me feel... You don't realise how stressed that kind of thing makes you until you kind of step away from it. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wearing heels or anything. If you're someone comfortable in those, then that's good for you. But for me personally, I wasn't comfortable. I felt like I couldn't really walk properly in them or anything, and it changed everything. It changed my walk. And now I even have a new walk because I wear flats. It's a more bouncy walk. It's a more happy walk. I can move faster. I've kind of stopped wearing anything that's just uncomfortable, and that's my only thing now. I won't wear anything uncomfortable at all, and I'm not going to wear anything I have to like keep adjusting or anything like that. Like that, I just can't be bothered with that anymore. Prentice Darlington asked, Prentice has asked quite a few questions, so I'm just going to answer one if that's okay. But the first one is, did you get anywhere with your driving? Yes, actually. I'm still doing my lessons and I'm doing quite well. I'm taking longer than most people would to complete my lessons because my lessons are shorter. Because I can't do long periods in the car, I have a really lovely driving instructor called Chris, and he deals with people, he's specifically used for people who are nervous or have anxiety issues or mental health issues. So he's so patient and lovely, and we do really short driving lessons once a week. So I'm not, it might seem like it's taking me ages, but I'm actually on track with it. It's just that my lessons are shorter, of course. So yeah, I've put in for my theory test. I've got my theory test next month. So fingers crossed that that goes well. And yeah, I'm hoping to be driving by the end of the year. My instructor's quite confident that I will be, so watch this space. I can't wait. Ray Potts asked, what songs, albums or musicians have had the most impact in your life, and in what way have they affected you, both personally and as a musician? Well, Florence and the Machine's first album, Lungs, is my favourite album of all time, and it means so much to me. I think I've said this before, but if you could like look into someone's brain and find an album that most fits someone's, I don't know, their personality and their thoughts, I feel like mine would be Lungs by Florence. I don't know why, I just feel like I relate to it. That's what I love about music. I feel like there's no reason for it. We just all love different music. Like, it can't be learned because we're all different. We like different things to our family. Just something in a certain piece of music just appeals to us in our soul, and I really love that about music. I don't know why Florence for me, but it's Florence. Marina and the Diamonds' first album meant a lot to me as well. I think the lyrics of that, I felt... The thing with Marina's music is that I'm not saying she has borderline personality disorder, but if you have borderline personality disorder, her lyrics are very relatable because she writes a lot about highs and lows and anxiety and bravado. And you know that lyric, I feel like I'm the worst so I always act like I'm the best. I mean, that is the most BPD lyric I've ever heard in my whole life. So that meant a lot to me because I related to the lyrics. Bat for Lashes, all her stuff, I just love because it's kind of experimental. Her lyrics are like poetry. Laura Marling I love, she's more folky, but again it's the lyrics. Her lyrics are sort of, they're almost poetic. I feel like with most of the music I like, you could put the lyrics in a poetry book. Also, I have to say Murray Gold, who does the soundtrack music for Doctor Who, because I feel like growing up listening to that music and always buying the soundtracks and getting so excited and playing them all the time, to the extent that like Dan and I can just name any of his songs from Doctor Who, and even our mum can, she loves it as well. I just feel like the way he puts music together and the emotion of his music, like that, the composition, that inspires me a lot. That level of building up a song that he does, bringing it to a crescendo and making it emotional. But for me, with the music I make, I like to do that with harmonies rather than instruments necessarily. But he does inspire me in that way, and it probably, my stuff doesn't sound anything like his stuff, and I'm nowhere near as good as him. He is the absolute pinnacle for me. I think he's amazing. But just listening to how he puts his music together and the layers and everything has helped me with my own music and how I construct my songs. In terms of music news, I've got a song which I'll be putting up on my music channel fairly soon. I'd say give it a month or so. So it's, you know what it's like. People always say to me, you know, the music's coming out so slowly, but because I have like the anxiety stuff, it's not so simple as like, oh, I'll just go to the studio and do this and do that. Like, it happens gradually. But yeah, I've got a new song coming out which I'm excited to play to you. I really like it. I don't know, it's a bit obscure, but okay, I'm just looking through this here, and I'm going to have to be really, really selective, and maybe I'll even make a second video for this, because I've really got to eat lunch at some point. It's getting quite late. Oh, this is a great one. Okay, Francesco Sani asked, hello Claudia, you've been doing these videos for a few years now, and I wondered if you could answer this question. Do you ever watch your earlier videos, and if so, do you think that being a vlogger has impacted your mental health or generally changed you as a person? Thank you in advance and happy birthday. Thank you so much, Francesco. I do watch my earlier videos sometimes, and a lot of the time I cringe at how I used to be, and I have a lot of sympathy for that person, because what you guys, you know, don't know, and I won't share all this with you because I know I talk about mental health stuff, but there are some things I do keep secret, and secret makes it sound like not secret, but you know, personal stuff, private stuff. I don't want to be the sort of vlogger that puts everything online. I get accused of doing that, but really I talk about my mental health because I feel like that will help people and it's good for me. There's so much I don't talk about online, and so there's things going on during the old videos that only I would know about or people in my family would know about, and I look at myself and I feel great sympathy, and I can kind of, I feel sad. I feel like you can tell in my old videos that there's stuff going on. I feel like you can look at it and think, oh, you know, she's not feeling great. And I think in a lot of my old videos I had a very different voice. I had a very high-pitched voice, and I was less confident, and I think that my voice has got lower with age anyway, but I also feel like I was so anxious that my voice was high and I didn't want to get anything wrong, and I was speaking as well as I could, and there's a real element of not being that comfortable really in those videos, so that can be embarrassing. Sometimes I look back at my opinions on things, and I haven't changed drastically, but sometimes I look back at stuff and I think, you know, as I've got older I've gained more, I'm better at phrasing, and I'm better at being more nuanced with things. I think when I was younger I was more black and white. I don't know if that's because I was younger or if it was because I had BPD but I wasn't treated, but I had been more black and white on certain issues before. And I hope that now I'm just as opinionated. I don't ever want to be like watered down, but I do think sometimes there are better ways of putting your point across, which I hope I do now. I do actually think that being a vlogger has actually helped me a lot, because I obviously spend a lot of time on my own. I don't go out that much. It's a way to connect to other people. I feel like I'm so glad I first started talking about this, because I used to be so nervous, and it was a different world in a way. I mean, it was a while ago, but it was a different world, and my world has changed so much. You know, people in my family, for example, now understand my mental health stuff, and people in general in society are starting to come to terms with mental illness and take it a bit more seriously. But when I started, it was a really nerve-wracking sort of taboo thing to do. But as I went along, yes, I'd get horrible trolling and things like that, but I'd also get comments from people saying, you've described how I feel, or, you know, wow, someone put that into words, and it feeling like you're not alone, like knowing that, oh my gosh, like, other people really do feel this and understand. That's amazing. And the fact that the level the channel's at now, with all the views, I feel like there's so many people from all over the place who have similar sort of experiences on the mental health front, because I can put up a mental health video, and you know what it's like when you have mental health. You think that it's you, and you think, oh god, you sort of second guess yourself and think you're being dramatic because society makes you think that. Even though I fight to try and to end the stigma and for people to understand that mental illness, just because you can't see it, it's still there, and you need to understand that people like us have slightly different needs for things, and that's fine. I still sometimes feel like I'm just making a big deal out of things, so it can be great to put stuff out there and to have people be validating and say, yes, that makes perfect sense, that's a symptom of what you're going through, I have that too, or I've been there and I've got out of it. And sometimes there are people who say, I feel like I'm going into this, you know, what can I do? And sometimes I can even offer advice. I don't know how good my advice would be, I'm not a professional, but it can be nice to sort of say to someone, well, I've been in that position and this is what would have helped me at the time, so hopefully this will help you. So it's been amazing for mental health, it's been fantastic, and actually I feel like the trolling, it's actually helped me. It sounds strange, but I've never really cared about that stuff particularly, depending on what type it is, you know, but I feel like it's made me very resilient. Having that for years and years, when I was at my very lowest in my personal life, receiving that, and still going forward, has made me very, very resilient and thick-skinned now. I really am. Just, I find it more easy to take. And I get less of it, I think maybe because before, these trolls are bullies and they're nasty. And I think they go for someone who they think isn't confident and they want to push that person over the edge. I think that's what they get their kicks from. And I feel like as I've got better, they've started to see, oh, she's actually getting better. We're not going to manage to push her over the edge, so there's no point. So, sad little lives they have. But yeah, it's made me so much more resilient. I can take so much more and it just doesn't put me off anymore. Fandom Rambler asked, would you rather play the Doctor or the Companion? That would very much depend on how the Doctor or Companion was written, like what the Companion would be like. Actually, I'd like to play the Master most of all. I'd love to play the Master. I don't know if I'd be good enough to play the Master. I think that, I think Dan would be amazing as well, Dan would be amazing as any character because I've told you he's studying acting and he is a genuinely very, very good actor. He can do all different types of acting. He can do musical theatre acting and he can do subtle TV acting, like he's really good. I think it would be really fun to play the Doctor, like that would be amazing, but maybe a Companion I'd be best suited to, but maybe I'd be best suited to playing a Companion, I'm not really sure, but I will say that if ever Doctor Who are casting, they want Anne Boleyn for something, you know, hit me up. I'd love to play Anne Boleyn in Doctor Who, that would just be amazing. The only thing is though, is that I'd be a nightmare with the scripts because they'd say like, oh, here's your lines, and I'd sit there and I'd say, no, I'm sorry, Anne wouldn't say that. She wouldn't say that. She specifically contradicted this in such and such time, here's the proof. Mason is on the Moon asked, my question is, do you do any sports as a hobby? And if you don't, which sport would you like to do in the future? I don't do any sports at all. I've never been sporty. I was the sort of person who genuinely, people would think I was such a wuss, and I was a wuss, let's be real. But we used to play indoor cricket in a hall at school sometimes, and just imagine that, because you've got 15-year-old, I don't know, maybe 15-year-old, I'm not sure, 15-year-old like boys, like fully grown, like really competitive, going for it, like properly, you know, proper cricket balls or tennis balls, whatever, like being thrown at them and properly hitting it and it's going all over the place, and that's dangerous. And I genuinely used to get so stressed and I didn't want to get hit by anything. Like, I'm the sort of person who, if someone shouts at me, I kind of like, I just go into like, I can't deal with it. If there's like a loud noise even sometimes, like, it's embarrassing really. But that sort of thing just makes me just like seize up, and I just, yeah. So being in that place where it felt like I was going to get hit by the ball and people were getting hit by it, I just couldn't deal with it. It stressed me out too much and I just felt unsafe and scared, and it sounds really silly, but I am like that. I don't know, well, I do know why. But yeah, so that wasn't good. I was bad at all things. Apart from dance, we did dance and gymnastics and I was quite good at those things. I feel like at school they should have made more of a big deal of being a team player, because I feel like it's all very well to be good at sports, which is wonderful and some people are so fantastic at that, but I feel like not everyone is. This goes for everything really. In any subject, you'll have people who are naturally good at it, but I feel like you should also praise the people who are team players and play by the rules and aren't gonna cheat and that sort of thing. Yeah, I always felt a little bit I always felt a bit down doing PE, because I kind of felt like, well look, I'm really short, I'm probably the shortest person in my year group, I'm not much good at this, but I'm trying my best, so it would be nice if there'd be some appreciation. I remember we had to do laps at some point, and at this point, this is getting dark again, my mental health was bad, I wasn't sleeping, I hadn't eaten for like 3 days, I kept doing that. I was so weak, and we had to run laps, and I remember feeling like I was going to die doing this lap, and I was last, and it was a horribly competitive thing, and we weren't allowed to stop, we had to keep going until we finished, and I got told to do another lap as punishment for talking back, and I think my talking back was, I'm sorry, I really can't do whatever you've asked me to do, can I sit out? And you know what some PE teachers are like? I feel like some PE teachers are like power crazed. They just want to be like in power, like the sort of people who should not be in power and should not be authorities. I feel like they become PE teachers. Don't quote me on that, I'm sure some of them are lovely. But yeah, he was like, no, you have to run around again. And I just thought, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to pass out or something. And so I just sat on the floor and I said, sorry, not doing it. And I got in trouble, but you know how it is. Weirdly, I was good at long jump. That's the weirdest thing, because I was the smallest in my year group, I think. There might be one girl smaller than me. But it was a big year group, and I was like the smallest or second smallest. And we had to do like long jump, and there were like these really tall athletic girls doing really well. And I seem to remember, and high jump too. I did pretty well in those, despite being so small. And I think it's because I did dancing, and maybe being smaller, it made me like lighter, and I don't know, maybe that helped me go further. I don't know, I was good at those things. Tell you what I would like to play though, I'd like to play badminton. I've never really had an opportunity, but my mum and dad used to play it when they were younger, and it sounds like a really cool sport, and there's no risk of getting hurt during it, which sounds fun. And it doesn't really matter like your height or anything, or you know, how big or small you are, it just seems fun. Okay, I'm just going to do 2 more, and then I might make a second video for this if you would like me to. So let me know in the comments if you want me to answer more of the questions. For She's a Jolly Good Fellow asked, I was wondering, what is your songwriting process like? What do you look to for inspiration when crafting lyrics? It's very much the same for how I do creative writing and poetry. In fact, a lot of my lyrics start as poetry. I just get like a rhythm in my head, and I feel like I have to be really emotional, and this is why I feel like if I didn't have BPD, or I didn't have mental health issues, I wouldn't be such a good writer, because I have to be in one of those really emotional highs or lows, and suddenly it just all comes out. It all comes flooding out of me, and I write it in a notebook, and I just scribble it down, and I keep a notebook with me by my bed all the time. Always got a notebook with me in case inspiration strikes, and sometimes I'll be out shopping and I'll be writing notes on my phone or something like that. I can't like control it. I can't just sit down and say I'm going to write a song, but sometimes I'll think I want to write something, and in the next few days different things will come to me. I read a lot of poetry before I start writing a song, and I look at aesthetics, and I watch music videos, and images translate well for me into poetry and lyrics. So I look at that sort of thing. I look at a lot of pre-Raphaelite art, because I feel like I find that helps my particular style of songwriting. I also, like, sometimes I just sit with my keyboard and I try things out, and I've got so many songs on my laptop which probably aren't good enough to share, but I just make them anyway, and sometimes they grow into different things. So sometimes I'll have old bits and pieces that I just created and I think, oh, that doesn't really work, and later on, like a year later, I'll pick it up again and say, actually, I can do something with that. So I just keep everything. I play around with my keyboard, I sit on my guitar for ages. It's weird, sometimes I can write a song in like 30 minutes and the whole song done, and sometimes a song will grow over weeks. So I don't know, really, that's I don't do the same thing every time. Okay, so I'm going to finish with this one by Michaela Batch. Happy birthday, thank you. What do you think the most valuable lessons you learned at 23 was? Okay, let me put my laptop down. So I think, as I've said before, I've become more nuanced in my approach. I feel like I see shades of grey more, which is also a consequence of me being more understanding my BPD, you know, because with BPD you do a thing called splitting, and people think that basically when you split it means that sometimes, for example, you'll think a person is all good, and when they do something wrong you'll think they're all bad. But it's not that simple, and it's not just for people, and some people with BPD don't even get that for people, and I only get it for certain people, which is weird. But it's not just people, it's not as simple as that. It can be with your thoughts on certain things. You know, you can see things very much in black and white, because in some cases with BPD it's been painful in the past to see the shades of grey in the middle, maybe because of trauma or something. It's just how your brain deals with things. Like if you go through a trauma or something very, very emotional, it can be easier for your brain to put it into the 2 boxes, you know? And you don't want to touch the stuff in the middle. It's messy and it's emotional and it hurts. So that's where it starts from. But it can be really unhelpful too, because even though it's a mechanism to deal with trauma, it can come out in other aspects of your life. So it's sometimes with social things, I've been too rigid in my thinking, perhaps, and I still hold most of my views. Some have developed, I think, slightly, but I feel more like I'm better at understanding the other side, which doesn't necessarily mean excusing people who do bad things, but I've become very interested in why. I've become very interested in why, for example, people think something which is sexist or homophobic or racist, and trying to unpack that. And I'm more interested now in how those attitudes can be changed, you know, which again is part of maybe why I want to get into writing for TV, you know, because I feel like it's not as simple as people who think bad things are bad people, obviously when I was younger, it's easier to think that. But it's not, you know, it's usually it's a societal thing. Why is that still being perpetuated? You know, why do people think that's okay? What is it that's kind of feeding that? What's the desire behind it? Sometimes I think about it like, for example, people who don't like the strides forward that women are having in society, because they feel like certain men feel like they're losing something. And in the past, I'd kind of laugh at that and be like, oh, well, you know, sorry, tough luck. And in a way, I still kind of think that. But I do also understand it from a sense, in that perspective, it can feel like to certain men, for example, this is why I'm an intersectional feminist, by the way, because it's not as simple as just men versus women, because you've got women in society who are better off than men in society. You could have an upper class woman who's very rich, and you can have a working class man. And for example, like the woman could be like a person of colour, and she could be bisexual, and she could be really, really rich, and then you could have a straight white man who is working class. And you can understand why that working class man, when we talk about like privilege and oppression, would think, well, hang on a second, that doesn't work. And I think that's because there's not such a good understanding of privilege and oppression and these dynamics. And I think a lot of the time people take it personally. So, you know, you've got a lot of men who'll say, well, you know, how can we need feminism in society when such and such woman is doing this and I'm not? And I feel like I have more understanding and empathy for that perspective, because I feel like it just comes from a misunderstanding, and the misunderstanding often is perpetuated by media, I feel like. So much of the bad stuff in society is perpetuated by media. I mean, especially the tabloids. If you look at the way the tabloids treat, like, how they talk about foreign people and immigrants and things like that, and just the language they use, they stir up this sort of normalised hatred and suspicion, and they sort of prey on vulnerable people who, for example, don't have that much money or don't have that much experience of things. They're not bad people. The media is sort of doing that, you know? So I'm not saying I'm here to like win round Nazis, because there's a certain level where you just think, no mate, sorry, no. But yeah, definitely I'm more interested in like understanding why people have certain perspectives on things, and maybe talking about that kind of thing more, because I feel like if we talked more intersectionally about things and how, you know, what privilege actually means. Like, it doesn't mean that just because you're a straight white man you're gonna have a perfect life. It just means that in terms of, like, for example, in terms of gender inequality, you're not really going to be suffering from that as a man. But you could have other problems, you know, still being a man, you know, from, for example, classism, being working class. We live in a system where it's totally unfair. I won't go into the whole thing, actually, I've started, but I will finish. But yeah, I'm more interested in talking about that sort of thing. But at the same time, I'm also, I'm not apologetic. I mean, I'm apologetic about, if I've done wrong, if I have you know, if I feel like I've let myself down in some way, then I'm happy to apologise. I don't mean it like that. I think that's important. And like, if you get called out for something and I think, oh yeah, okay, fair enough, I've you know, stepped out of line or something, I hope that I'm the sort of person who can say, okay, yeah, I took that a bit far, I'm sorry. Hopefully I'm that sort of person. But also, I'm not apologetic about my opinions on stuff. Like, for example, when I used to talk about fandom, I used to, as a woman in fandom, I used to kind of talk like, oh, it's not really my space, so please listen to me, and I'm sorry to intrude, and let me just say this little opinion. And now I'm sort of like, well, you don't own fandom. This is my opinion, okay? Like, sorry, but you don't own the place anymore. I feel like I'm more confident with my opinions. But at the same time, I'm also confident. I'm also confident enough that if someone were to come to me and say, "Look, you were out of line," as sometimes these things do happen. You know, I hope I'd be the person who'd say, "Yeah, okay, I went a little bit overboard with that, and I'm sorry, and you know, won't do that again in future." Because I do try to be kind. I want to always be kind, but at the same time, I don't do any of that apologism stuff, you know. If someone says something that is racist or sexist or homophobic, or is racist or sexist or homophobic, I'm not here for any of that, oh, well, they're a nice person, so don't say anything. And I mean, fair enough, I'm not gonna, like, personally hugely attack them as a person, but I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh, well, they're a nice person, so I'll just let that slide. Like, no, if I'm talking about stuff, and they've blooming put something sexist in it, or something racist or homophobic, I'm gonna say something about it, you know? And this is something I'm navigating, getting a bigger platform, which maybe I might talk about on another day, and especially with regards to the Doctor Who fandom as well. again, like, I'll talk about this probably in my video Dan for Time Team, but this this idea that, oh, you don't want to really be getting anyone's back up, you know, you don't want to be saying an opinion that people might not like. I don't go along with that, sorry, that's not me. I've not gone through all these years of learning and growing online and forming opinions to just be the sort of person that thinks, oh, but I'll keep them to myself because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to cause any problems. No, that's not me. That's not me at all. That was totally long and rambling, but yeah, I guess in my 23rd year, I'm kind of learning to balance that. I'm still learning to balance that. I'm 24 and I'm still doing that. Sometimes I take things a bit far. Sometimes I don't take things far enough. Sometimes I'm too soft on things I need to be sterner on. Sometimes I forgive when I shouldn't, and sometimes I don't let things go and I'm stubborn when actually I do need to let things go and give people another chance. So it's just a learning process. Life is a learning process, but hopefully I'm improving as a human as time goes on, and hopefully I'm learning and growing. I don't ever want to get to a point where I think that I've reached it. I've reached the pinnacle. I'm a good person now. I want to be a good person, basically. That's the aim. I want to be a good person, and I mess up all the time, but hopefully by the time I leave the earth, I'll look back and say that on the whole, I was a good person, so I hope so. Anyway, thank you so much for your questions. This might be long. It feels like it's been ages because I'm so hungry right now. I started before lunchtime and it's way past now. Yeah, I'm gonna go. I might do a second video for questions if you would like, so let me know in the comments. And yeah, I love you loads. Thank you so much. Especially, I got birthday cards in my PO box, which was so lovely. I'm writing little thank you letters to everyone who sent me a birthday card, so thank you to all of you guys. That was amazing to pick up my PO box and see all those birthday cards. Thank you for that, that's so lovely. Anyway, I love you and I will see you really soon. Okay, bye.